Hey guys! How are all of you beautiful people doing? I hope you all are having a great day. And yes, this is the next part of I Became Shikamaru Nara. Where the world that once seemed fictional is now real. Shinobi, chakra. It's all so close. After being reborn in the body of a deceased child, the hero has a second chance to live this life anew. Having found a new home and clan, he will have a long and difficult journey. But the object that was found in the past and changed his fate is still with him. Now, with this power, he will follow the path of the strongest Shinobi. So without any delay, let's start the series. Guy had been preparing his body all last week. This guy seemed to not want to teach Shikamaru without good bodily torture, and only after so much time, he finally did it. Of course, not without his inherent pathos and long lectures. Therefore, even without being an official disciple of Might Guy, Shikamaru was able to learn this legendary technique. So now he can be said to be half his student. Although Shikamaru didn't care much, he achieved his goal, the task was completed. Along the way of Taijutsu. Achieve 100 strength, defense, and speed. Learn any B-grade Taijutsu style. Reward, 5,000 points, Elixir of Muscle Strengthening x2, Elixir of Bone Strengthening x2. The Seven Heavens Breathing Method. Special conditions, to achieve all this, up to 10 years. Special reward, 5,000 points, Elixir of Body Strengthening x2. This task was one of the first, so the reward was not particularly surprising. In those days even tens of thousands of points were not something special. But, everything changed and such tasks became less and less. The pedigrees have met the limit, the rewards have become smaller, and who knows how soon the system will throw out new difficulties. Although Shikamaru didn't care much, he was glad that he already had it. Now, barely moving his legs, he finally arrived home. Approaching the long residence, whose windows were still lit, he slowly opened the gate and strode to the door. Before he could knock, the door opened and the mother's displeased face appeared right from there. The guy grinned wryly and nodded. "Hi Mom. What's for dinner?" The woman flashed her eyes with displeasure. "Where were you, young man?" Shikamaru sighed and, looking straight into his mother's eyes, said earnestly. "I trained with Guy-sensei, he taught me new Taijutsu techniques." Yoshino narrowed her eyes, looked up at Shikamaru and nodded wryly. "He didn't feel sorry for you at all, did he? How similar to him." Sighing, the woman threw a towel over her shoulder and waved her hand. "Come in, take a shower and go to the table. Your father, as usual, disappears somewhere." Shikamaru blinked in surprise, but didn't argue. Usually Yoshino was not so restrained and Shikamaru could well receive an unpleasant punishment, such as hard housework. But now everything has gone surprisingly well. Has my father finally decided to devote time to her? Ha, it looks like this is my luck, I need to dump it while I'm safe. Exhaling, Shikamaru quickly went home and took off his shoes. Just as he was about to quickly go to the shower, he was stopped by his mother's displeased voice. "Wait a minute." Shikamaru turned around warily, and Yoshino frowned again. "Shikamaru. Have you smoked again? Damn female scent." Cursing, Shikamaru frowned. He just hated it when this woman started swearing at him, like he was some 6-year-old boy. But there was nothing to argue, she was his mother. As usual, I had to get out with a typical childish excuse. "Mom. How can you? Just think, I tried it once, this time it was definitely not me. It's all this old Hokage man. You know he smokes all the time. Yoshino naturally didn't believe it, but only frowned more. Then, her mood suddenly changed, and she grumbled in displeasure. "Go wash yourself, you stink, and put on clean clothes." "Yes, yes," Shikamaru waving his hand and headed straight for the shower. After that, he ate a quick dinner and finally returned to the tranquil atmosphere of his room. Right by the large window was Shikamaru's small bed, neatly tucked in. Next to which was a wooden curbstone, on which was a dim lamp and a lonely cactus. In general, an ordinary room with no frills. Shikamaru had no intention of changing her, he didn't spend much time here. Even his office was better furnished. Now the guy was only in his pants, so he rolled onto the bed, threw his bare feet onto the windowsill and exhaled with relief. "How good! I finally studied the 8 gates, now there is very little left." With a mental grin, Shikamaru immediately summoned his status. He was interested in looking at some of the indicators. He has not yet taken the award, but this moment will come soon. Name, Shikamaru Nara. Age, 6 years old. Faction, Nara Clan, Hidden Leaf Village. Ninja rank, Genin. Strength, 113, Stamina, 135, Speed, 120. Talent, 225, Chakra size, 1335, Chakra control, 85. Pedigrees, 5/5. Nara, strength 425%, improved mastery of the element yin, 85%. Improved genome, absent. Kaguya, 50% strength, unique body +5 to indicators, strength, endurance and speed. Improved genome, Shikatsumiyaku. Evolution, absent. Uchiha, power 400%, improved mastery of the element fire, 80%. Improved genome, Sharingan, completed. Evolution, absent. Inuzuka, strength 50%, upgrades of all senses +5 speed. Improved genome, absent. Uzumaki, 50% strength, improvements in control and chakra volume. +5 to control, +200 to chakra volume. Improved vitality and disposition to fuinjutsu. +5 to stamina. Elements. Wind release 5%. Earth release 38%. Fire release 107%. Yin release 116%. Yang release 20%. After examining his status, Shikamaru nodded contentedly. Not bad, became noticeably stronger. I doubt my talent is as huge as that of Itachi or Madara, but at Kakashi's level it may well be. Pedigrees are useful, but there are some problems with them. As I understand it, pedigrees with the same bonuses do not add up. So when I get the Yamanaka bloodline, my yin compatibility will not change, no matter how I pumped it. Although it would be nice to get sensing. Although, of course, spending points on it is pointless. Elemental compatibility is a great help, but it certainly doesn't offer the terrible benefits of the Rinnegan or Sage mode. It is worth thinking about it in your free time. Although, where should I rush? I'll have time for everything. Do not be greedy. Shikamaru understood that from the pedigrees in his presence, some were simply useless, but he could not get rid of them, except that he could combine, but this pill was so expensive that such an idea disappeared by herself. It might seem that the guy's talents and current abilities are enormous, but do not forget that at 13 Itachi was already an S-rank Shinobi, even without the main Geki Sharingan. On this side, there was still room to grow, not to mention Madara and Hashirama's talents. The pills have limits, and the prices are not so inclined to accept them. As for the technicians, this is not a particularly profitable pleasure. Now Shikamaru was deciding what to spend his available glasses on. There were as many as 19,000 in stock, so there was something to spend. It was quite possible to get a gene expansion pill and buy something worthwhile with the remaining points. But also, it was possible to acquire a genome, which, in fact, was not a pedigree and did not seem to have any special restrictions so far. But Shikamaru was sure there were some tricks here too. And I didn't want to receive special genomes either. The spontaneous ones were useless, and the ones that were interesting were based on the pedigree. The Mokutan was desirable, the Bakugan was natural, but the prices bite terribly. Sarutobi, with its advantages to control, were also interesting. Lost in thought, Shikamaru smiled oddly and shook his head. Okay, I'm a little too insolent. It will be too much if I become strong like Madara by the age of 10. Although this is unlikely, I really don't know how I will need to swing in order to achieve his talent. Yet he received a special reincarnation power, which did not weakly increase his potential. Sasuke and Naruto at one time also got hold of her and developed well that way, and this is not to mention their innate talents. Although, what is already there, I also have my own tricks. In the future, it is worthwhile to devote time to useful things, namely Raizeenn Jutsu and Fuin. Thanks to them I can increase strength not only with the help of the system. Fuin can help in sealing, the same by Jua, although there I have some questions and things that require planning. Akatsuki can cause a headache. It is worth thinking about counteraction if I decide to hunt for their prey. With their powers, it won't be easy to snatch something out of their hands. Well, Iron Ninjutsu can also help. That Tsunad's technique is very useful, and I'll improve control. Having super regeneration will be of great help. But how can I get this technique? I doubt that the big-breasted woman will get it and give me this jutsu. Although Tsunad has weaknesses, you can also take a risk there, albeit not without a set of abilities, so that the risk does not turn into a mortal risk. She is very strong, you need to be prepared. Maybe Hiruzen will help me here, let's take a look. Okay, with the nearest teachings, the matter is already decided long ago. I will go into the lock and study techniques and increase my experience. With a rather chuckle, Shikamaru planned things for the first time, not related to the system. He was not particularly worried about business yet. He can earn Ryo only after he leaves the village and can improve relations either by renegades or bandits. Now he was quite happy with what he had. Okay, back to the points of fate. After looking at the rather significant figure, Shikamaru ran a glance over the pedigrees. On the one hand, he could easily have purchased some for 10,000, the same dragon veins were curious because of their uniqueness. It was a bloodline that directly influenced regeneration and gave the strange Keki Genkai. Basically, it strengthened the body, bones and skin. It was one of the few interesting abilities. Still, although there were some genomes and bloodlines in the system that were not shown in the manga, there were too few of them. From that it was even better, you didn't have to rack your brains once again about their principles of work. As for the extended genomes, of which there were only 3 pieces, Shikamaru did not even think about them. Not only the price was high, but the natural predispositions which he did not have at the moment were also important. At this point, the guy thought a little. Although on the other hand, I'm still able to see the rewards for acquiring the first enhanced genome, and she's very tempting. If you count. I need to get a 3-element propensity for the same dust or metal release. They are much more suitable for me than the same release of rust, which requires a predisposition to water, wind and earth for its mastery. For dust I already have fire and earth, just like for metal. Curiously, this metal clearly surpasses the element of steel. Judging from a rather short description, this is not just some kind of metal, but all metals in general: gold, copper, tin, mercury. The ability to create and manage them. Terrible technique and damn useful. Only it needs more lightning, and dust needs the wind. So the question comes out of everything. What should I choose? Glancing at the already darkened sky and the stars shining in the distance, Shikamaru did not hesitate for a long time. The wind was undoubtedly strong, but lightning. Their mastery opened up good prospects in ninjutsu, and for Shikamaru it was another interesting section to study. With a determined glare, Shikamaru returned to another question. And what pedigree would give me a predisposition to lightning? Elixirs to pump a predisposition is stupid, I can only put on pedigrees. On the other hand, although metal is desirable, I know dust and have seen it in action. True, the advantage of creating metals with the help of chakra is something beyond. Well, this is almost Mokutan with its endless wood resources. Damn, is this ability even legal? I haven't heard a word about her in the manga. Although, on the other hand, there was steel, which is clearly inferior to her. Interesting, very interesting. Shikamaru was really impressed. But, the path that will need to be paved to the extended genome is also not easy. First of all, this is the gene expansion pill, then the lightning pedigree that still needs to be found, and only then the extended genome, the price of which is no joke. In general, the points of fate needed to complete this business will require no less than to obtain the Hyuga bloodline. But the awards were also worth it. If you do, then right now, while there is an opportunity. It will take years, if not even decades, to increase the potential of lightning possession with simple workouts and elixirs, and this is with my talent. I've just raised nothing in recent years, there's no doubt about it, it will be more and more difficult further, this is a known fact. And I will have to focus only on lightning and work a lot in this direction. This is clearly not an option, so the pedigree is an excellent choice. There must be something in the hidden cloud. What is the Reikige's pedigree? Blinking his eyes, Shikamaru quickly scanned the bloodlines for lightning bonuses, while at the same time looking for bloodlines from the hidden cloud. So, here, stopping at one curious pedigree B, Shikamaru immediately sharpened his gaze. All these Reikige were relatives, straight royal family. I read that the first and the second were from the Bai clan. Although, no wonder, we have no better in Konoha, starting with Hashira the problems are over the roof. Or from Hogroma. Shikamaru grinned and focused on BS bloodline. By strength 50%, improved mastery of the element lightning, 10%, improved innate physical potential +5 to strength, endurance and speed. Looking at this bloodline, Shikamaru could only chuckle bitterly. Again indicators, unpleasant. The guy's feelings could be understood. On the one hand, it may seem that the additional bonuses are incredibly good, there is also an improved mastery of the element. But their main problem was that they did not add up. Simply put, all the bonus received from the Clan B pedigree that added +5 to the parameters will be simply useless due to those already available in other pedigrees. Shikamaru realized this quite recently, when he figured out everything in more detail. Previously, the system did not show any problems at all, as if everything was perfect, but having changed, flaws began to be seen immediately. The inability to stack up bonuses from pedigrees is one such flaw. Simply put, in Yuzuka's pedigree, which was already not very useful, became even worse, because its +5 bonus to speed was counted by the system only at the moment it was received, and then it did not make sense, since it did not increase. So pumping this pedigree is useless. Even if it rises to 400%, nothing will change, +5 will remain so forever, also related to the increase in the stamina of the Uzumaki clan. Since Kaguya was acquired earlier, the +5 stamina gains will only increase there. There was a similar outcome from the Bai clan lineage. Fortunately, they had a bonus to lightning. This made Shikamaru think. There was also Darue with an excellent storm genome, but the price for him was twice as much, so the option to take possession of his power was unprofitable. But at this point, Shikamaru thought of several options. Still, it was better to choose a more profitable path. On the one hand, you can take a step towards the path of the extended genome, on the other, open Mangekyo, because the glasses were quite allowed, but then there will be an obvious loss of 5,000 fate points, and Mangekyo now will not give out special advantages like other paths. Further, one could generally embark on the path of improved genomes and get only 3 more pieces earned, in place with the existing 2, get excellent rewards. As a result, which would definitely pay off not only the points spent on them, but also the strength. But, on the other hand, it was necessary to think about pumping current capabilities, to raise talent and the amount of chakra. This would clearly speed up and improve the quality of training, help to protect yourself and give an advantage in the field of creating your own jutsu, for which there were their own awards. I decided. Laughing, Shikamaru stopped thinking and chose his further path, fully thinking over further actions. The system had some flaws that hadn't been changed yet. These flaws were demonstrated at the very beginning, back in the days when rewards for quests were visible, and these rewards were very impressive, and the tasks themselves were not particularly difficult. In fact, in those days, doing one thing, Shikamaru not only did not lose anything, but also quickly gained. As a result, it was possible to close a couple of tasks and remain with a lot of advantages. It was difficult to know if this was a bug or an interesting feature. But now these benefits were becoming less and less, but they still remained. It was them that Shikamaru was examining now. The moment with the extended genome was tempting, but at this stage of development it was not the time to act. There were still not enough points, but this shortcoming could be solved very soon. In addition, no one forbade paving the best path for this and laying the foundation. So, if you complete the assignment in the elements, then I will receive 10,000, but I will spend 15 on it. In the end. If you accumulate 25, then in theory everything should work out. 5 for a pill, 20 for Derue's pedigree, another 2,000. And that, I need 27,000 for a successful outcome. But, it must be done at one moment, so as not to waste time exhaling. The guy's eyes flashed, now all that was left was to acquire points of fate. But first of all, Uzumaki. As much as he wanted something new, he really wanted to upgrade the existing ones, even if the price was not small. Not pumping up Uzumaki's bloodline was a mistake, especially now that he was preparing for the long retirement, so he decided to start with her. He was not concerned about the others yet. He did not plan to pump the same Inuzuka pedigree and was even in some way angry that it took him into his head to get it in due time. He could well have refused the award that time, after all, there was a choice. Now the extra slot was occupied by an essentially useless pedigree. Even Akimichi was much more interesting in this regard. Focusing on sharing, Shikamaru first chose bloodline enhancement pills. Okay, You just need not to overdo it. You should understand that I can take the gene expansion pill only 3 times, now you shouldn't drop points less than 15,000. If everything goes according to plan, then for the upcoming missions I can buy 7,000, and in the best case, even as much as 14. In extreme cases, I will improve Kaguya's pedigree and acquire the necessary, for the same speed or strength there is a task with an excellent reward. It is too early now, my physical indicators are still not enough to reach the same 250 points of strength in one step. It's a pity it's over. I could have invested right now, but I'm afraid, although this will raise my talent, the rate of growth of indicators will decrease, because I will become many times stronger. In the future, this would be a mistake. About Uzumaki also, perhaps, although not exactly, after I now invest, chakra growth will drop very much, as well as control growth. But, I just can't sit now and do nothing. I need more talent, and if this slows down the growth of my strength, then it's okay. I wasn't going to become Madara by the age of 10, and then kick Kaguya off. It was necessary to act. And in general, if you look at everything in this way, then I just need to wait for the age of majority, and then upgrade. This is clearly the most profitable way. But how can I go for such a thing? It's terribly boring. Therefore, it's even better, I may be a crook with luck, but I will slow down my development. Not bad, the power of Jonin by the age of 12 will be enough for me. The main thing is that this power should be like that of an elite Jonin, otherwise they would have laughed at me. I believe in karma, and if I continue to sit and wait for a better moment, I'm afraid it'll end badly. Grinning and stopping all these long reflections, Shikamaru finally began the long-awaited pumping. With a simple mind, Shikamaru immediately exchanged 4,000 fate points for 2 bloodline enhancement pills. At the same moment, his glasses dropped to 15,300. This is how he took a step back, in order to make more than a dozen forward in the future. Opening his fist with a couple of round balls in his hand, the guy's eyes flashed decisively and he immediately threw the pills into his mouth, having previously selected the Uzumaki pedigree for pumping. According to my calculations, the chakra of an ordinary Jonin does not even exceed 2,000 if they are converted into system numbers. Jonins, like Kakashi, have maybe 500 points more, no more. As a result, with such a leveling up, in terms of the amount of chakra, in just one step I will reach the elite Jonins. It may not have been too surprising, but worthy. Having undressed, Shikamaru settled himself more comfortably on the floor and got ready. He was no longer afraid of taking 2 pills at once, because the abilities allowed. Everything went according to plan. After an hour, sitting on the floor of his room, Shikamaru was in a sad state. A puddle of sweat had already accumulated under him, which was rapidly decreasing, and his hoarse breathing indicated that everything was clearly not going according to plan. The whole body of the guy was incredibly red, veins were swollen, muscles tensed to the limit, blue chakra circulated around, mixed with green vapors of sweat. From all this, even the hair on his head moved without the wind. All this chakra could be seen with the naked eye and marveled at its terrible amount. An ordinary child simply could not accommodate such a huge amount. What Shikamaru forgot to calculate was just chakra. He completely forgot that one cannot just take it and in one leap reach such a terrifying volume. He used everything as an example to Naruto, but completely lost sight of the fact that the boy grew up with the Baijua inside, who slowly changed his chakra channels and increased his reserves. Now, in one step, Shikamaru has more than doubled the amount of chakra from his current capabilities. The pills had almost no effect, but the effect of bursting channels and rapid chakra growth was so painful that Shikamaru involuntarily activated the Sharingan, and bloody tears slowly flowed from his eyes. The guy's fingers have already broken through the skin of the palm, but the blood just evaporated from the enormous heat. Now he seemed to have opened the seventh gate and reached the limit. Guy's training was not in vain. He continued to endure and hold back the chakra in his body. He knew that as soon as he made a wrong move, only lumps would remain from his carcass. Heck! I suspected that it might go sideways, 2 pills of risk, but who knew that everything would be so bad? This guy with his power of youth powdered all my brains, damn it. If it weren't for the pedigrees, I would have died. It's good that I'm starting to understand something now. Maybe it wasn't an osh, oh you, damn it. Gritting his teeth, a new wave of pain swept through Shikamaru's body. If there were a Hyuga Shinobi here right now and he looked with his dojutsu at Shikamaru's current channels, he would be shocked. They were cracking at the seams and had hundreds of cracks. Only thanks to the unique body and bones, Shikamaru was still holding on. The recent training of the 8 gates also played a role, and the injuries did not reach horrific levels. Another 3 hours passed, and the pain finally began to subside. The fierce pressure of the new chakra began to slowly slow down. The frantic stream of waves seemed to have wasted all its strength and turned into a small wave, the strength of which also quickly subsided. In the end, it finally ended. Shikamaru was no longer sitting on the floor, he just lay with his back on the boards and breathed heavily. His whole body was working to the limit. When finally everything stopped, he barely opened his bloodshot eyes, in which it was even difficult to see the pupil, and smiled with teeth as snow white as pearls. There was not a hint of pain in this smile, there was a feeling that he was even pleased. This was not surprising. After all, this time he gained much more than he had previously thought. Now it was finally possible to rest. Closing his eyes, the guy fell into an unconscious sleep. As for his state, it was nowhere more sad. He was no longer in the balance of death, but the injuries he received were horrific. Thousands of damage to the channels, ruptured blood vessels and cracked bones from the pressure of the chakra. But, all these were only external injuries. His mental state received an even greater blow. Although he gained a lot from this, the price was impressive. Days followed nights, summer followed autumn, and autumn followed winter. The cycle did not last long, and now another winter came more than 3 years after what happened in the abandoned Uzumaki quarter, and almost 3 years after the Uchiha massacre. During this time, Konoha continued to live her normal life. The disappeared clan was still remembered, but few saw what happened on that ill-fated day. Therefore, for many it seemed that their acquaintances simply disappeared, as if they had never existed. It was really sad. The clan disappeared, leaving only one survivor. Since then, Sasuke Uchiha's life has changed dramatically. From a kind, slightly shy boy with talents, in an instant he turned into a closed one and lost his former childish smile. Now it was a gloomy child with a brooding and gloomy look. Although it was not all that sad, Sasuke still had a friend with whom they often quarreled and fought. Naruto Uzumaki, who would have thought? Naruto could truly be called his friend. After all, only with them could Sasuke still smile or compete with joy. Shikamaru sometimes watched these two and was amazed. Yet history has changed. Sasuke was talented, Naruto was diligent. The second began to train much earlier, so he largely bypassed his friend Uchiha. Naruto did not have that rival spirit mixed with mild envy, so he was able to approach Sasuke, and since then these are both the main rivals in the academy. Sasuke stubbornly tried to catch up with his comrade and life went on as usual. More than a year ago, Shikamaru left the academy and fully took up ninja affairs, continuing to operate according to plan and embarking on lower-ranking missions. Just at this time, in the center of the village, in a small cafe, where the noise and din of outgoing visitors reigned, there was a small room outside the basement doors. The room had perfect lighting, although it was rather cold and damp. But it was here that Shikamaru spent most of his time in recent years. The room was not decorated, but all its walls were littered with hundreds of different sheets of paper with incomprehensible symbols. These were all Fuinjutsu seals. There were so many seals that it was almost impossible to count their number. Only on the cold stone floor were there relatively few of them. Many symbols on the walls were repeated, many were drawn not in black ink, but in blood. Some were unfinished, and some looked quite good, even a slight sense of danger emanated from them. At that moment, in the lotus position in front of a small wooden table, sat a tall young man with dark, slightly sharp hair, braided into a ponytail. The guy's face was a little pale, there were bruises under his eyes, his hands had only a few abrasions and the white bandages completely disappeared. Here are just all the guy's clothes, like his forehead, were covered with ink, as well as the fingers of both hands, with which he alternately deduced symbols with special zeal. Shikamaru's eyes were glittering, and several glittering beads of sweat had already accumulated on his forehead. He was as tense as possible. But what is strange, he used two brushes at once and displayed with both of them characters that were not similar to each other. Having learned this fooing technique, he increased the speed of work several times. But it didn't help him at all. Having already spoiled a couple of hundred sheets, he never came to the desired effect, and this time he again reached an important moment. All in a couple of seconds, having brought out an ideal fui in print, it immediately flashed with a bright green light, as at the same moment, the light faded, the paper quickly began to turn black and after a second, completely rotted into nothing. Shikamaru could only snort in annoyance at the result of his last hour's labors. What time, damn! Am I so bad or what? This Mito is too demanding. Looking at the old yellowed scroll in the corner of the table with red symbols on it, Shikamaru could only sigh. I've already learned half of everything. The part is difficult to repeat, but still real. Now, even without Naruto, I would be able to infiltrate that Uzumaki quarter. Even so, this sealed scroll still defies. I used the triple burning method, the 3 styles maelstrom unsealing method, breaking the shackles and a dozen worse methods, and nothing. How good was Mito? Reaching for the glass of sake, Shikamaru raised it, threw it back and not receiving the coveted liquid, he just shook off the drops from the glass in irritation. Eternally ends. Putting the scroll down, Shikamaru slowly got up, wiped his face with a towel, crunched his neck and sighed, I could have used the great unsealing of the 10 young orbs, but... these are already excessive methods. You will need chakras like from 3 Jinchuriki. Although, if you find the Baijua and seal it. Shikamaru nodded thoughtfully. As an option. But I don't have the style of 8 trigrams, and using other seals is a little unreasonable, it is clearly worse. Now, understanding the structure, I can repeat that seal, I still remember the view from the manga. But only the correct distribution and mixing of chakra can cause an unpleasant disaster. Crunching his fingers, Shikamaru walked to the wall hung with paper stamps and ripped off one of the largest, said thoughtfully. My seal may also work, although whom I am deceiving, I still have to learn a year or 2 before calling myself a master. It is worth visiting the Mito treasury once more. If I don't find the complete 8 trigram style and the final part of the maelstrom style, it will put a break in my training. Glancing at the ceiling, Shikamaru folded up a couple of seals and the glowing fuin on the ceiling immediately went out. The room instantly plunged into darkness. Only small beams of torchlight could hardly break through the wooden door of the entrance. Approaching the door, Shikamaru easily opened it, took off his jacket from the hanger, threw it over his shoulders and slowly stepped into a small corridor. Oddly enough, but only after leaving the room, from all sides there was immediately heard the noise and hubbub of the crowd from the upper floor. Shikamaru just grinned, folded the seal, slammed the wall and without turning, slowly trudged towards the stairs, barely lit by a couple of torches. At the same moment, with an unpleasant scraping noise, the stone completely hid the wooden door behind. The only thing left is a stone wall with an uncomplicated symbol of the Nara clan. Climbing the stairs and opening the door, Shikamaru extinguished all the torches with a light movement of his hand. He closed the door behind him. He immediately entered the pantry with groceries. The boxes were neatly laid out everywhere, most of them sealed. There were only 2 doors, one to the backyard and the other to the kitchen. Without thinking twice, Shikamaru took a step and entered the kitchen. Work was in full swing there now. 3 cooks rushed about the kitchen and cooked the food by the sweat of their brows. Noticing Shikamaru, the chefs immediately changed in their faces, but after a short nod from the guy, everyone immediately returned to work. They already knew, although he looked like a child, he was good at reprimands. They were clearly apprehensive about this young boss. After washing and putting himself in order, the guy left the kitchen. Shikamaru immediately got into a small hall of the restaurant to the eyeballs filled with either ordinary people or several shinobi. Over the past 3 years, nothing has changed much here. Except, of course, some dishes that have brought the establishment not a little fame. Although with business in general, Shikamaru was unhappy with some issues. The politics of the hidden villages gave rise to many problems with which he could not yet figure out. Noticing the familiar guys at the far table, Shikamaru mentally chuckled. It looks like it's already evening, something I don't follow the time at all. Smiling, Shikamaru waved in response to the cute blonde and slowly walked in their direction. Stopping at a small table by the window, Shikamaru asked with a smile. You have nothing to do again? 3 were sitting at the table. On the left side of the table by the window sat a short blonde girl with a bright smile and impressive blue eyes. The girl's hair barely reached her shoulders, but the bangs covered half of her face. She was dressed in a purple top and skirt. Bandages were tightened on her waist and legs. Why this was done, Shikamaru did not really understand. Ino had grown noticeably in 3 years. Next to her, crunching chips, sat a chubby guy in a grey sweatshirt and black gloves with metal inserts. Because of his hood, Kji's face was hard to see. All that could be seen were the clan marks on his cheeks. The same marks stood out on the back of his sweatshirt. On his feet, the guy wore dark green knee-length shorts and grey sneakers with spikes. This fat man has changed noticeably in 3 years, his muscle mass has increased no less than fat. Although, the fat man's habits have not changed much, especially his eating habits. Thanks to this, he can be said to become a regular customer of a small restaurant. Shikamaru. Opposite these 2, a more mature girl was sitting at the window. She wore the same kimono as 3 years ago, only her childish charm turned into the charm of an adult girl. Her golden hair, like silk, fell down her back to the very waist, and even such loose clothing could not completely hide the beautiful and ideal forms of the girl. All 3 of them looked at Shikamaru. Ino smiled as usual, Kji just nodded, and Avi just glanced at the guy and returned to her cocktail. As always, though. Smiling, Shikamaru sat down in an empty seat next to Avi and asked. You don't often see you here, do you have free time? Aha! It's all because of Ino, the blonde replied emotionally. Ino chuckled a little. It didn't take long to persuade you. Avi cast a displeased glance at the girl and turned away. Shikamaru just shook his head and turned to Kji. How is your workout? Okay. The father is pressing hard, but this is already bearable. Yeah, me too. Ino smiled sweetly at Shikamaru. When are we going to practice? It's more fun with you. Shikamaru leaned back on the sofa and sighed. I have a lot of work, if I have time, I can. Ino sighed sadly, after which Avi suddenly spoke up, still not turning her head towards Shikamaru. I heard you left the academy. Ino sighed again, while Shikamaru just smiled. There was a case. A year ago I started to complete the assignments, the teacher and father insisted, and I already knew the program of the academy, so I had to leave. Looking at Ino, Shikamaru said. Sorry, Ino. The girl just shook her head and smiled again. Yes, and I was not offended, it was just so unexpected. It's so boring without you, this fat man always crunches and interferes with work. Nudging Kji with her elbow, Ino chuckled, well, there's too few worthy opponents. Kji glanced at his friend with displeasure. You'd better study than get into trouble. I'm not going to separate you from a fight with the next genin anymore. Ino rolled her eyes. Yes, you go, they themselves ran up. Shikamaru listened to the chatter of his friends with a smile and pondered. Yet they have grown. Completely unlike themselves in the past. Ino, although playful, but now also aggressive, Kji is now a calm big man, and Avi. Looking at the quiet girl, Shikamaru asked. You are quieter than usual today, did something happen? The girl looked down, put down the cocktail and sighed. Today, more than 10 years have passed since the death of parents. Shikamaru looked away, paused, and then quietly said. They would definitely be proud of you. You are already a seasoned jounin worthy of the village Shinobi. Avi just smiled wryly and said quietly. Maybe. Over the past 3 years, Shikamaru has occasionally trained with Avi. He tried to do it himself without sending clones. He may have liked this girl, but the guy was more likely to enjoy spending time in her company. It was interesting to train with her, calmly and without haste. It was a kind of relaxation. Although sometimes sad thoughts rolled over Avi, she was often in a good mood and smiled. You could say these two were already old friends. As for Ino and Kji, Shikamaru has seen fewer friends since the days of the academy. Usually he spent weekends with them, rested. The rest of the time he tried to work. It was for this reason that he now looked a little pale and tired. Although he spent most of his time studying Fuin. More than a dozen of his clones were busy with various things. Someone carried out the tasks of the village, someone studied the data in the libraries. Someone trained in Fuin or techniques, and someone trained in Taijutsu. It may seem like training with clones is very productive and incredibly rewarding, but this is only part of the truth. They are undoubtedly very useful, because thanks to them, Shikamaru was finally able to reach his limits in many areas. Learn a lot of jutsu and complete several system tasks. But at the same time, the frequent use and expenditure of chakra led to rapid exhaustion. This exhaustion gradually accumulated and led to unpleasant consequences. Headaches, apathy and fatigue. Over the past 3 years, Shikamaru has been incredibly tired. It was only now that he began to understand why Naruto, with his huge reserves as Hokage, was so tired. The frequent use of clones led to a similar problem. In Shikamaru, this was already expressed in nausea and aching bones. If this continues, it will probably lead to even worse consequences. And this despite the fact that the guy has cut the use of clones in half. The consequences have diminished, but not by much. Ino and Kji threw barbs for a long time, but then the girl suddenly noticed the sad state of her older sister and the pale face of her friend. Naturally, Ino knew that she was tormenting Avi. Because of this, she called her here today. She knew well that Shikamaru could somehow cheer her up, and he himself would take a little rest from his affairs. Sighing, Ino smiled and spoke loudly. Do you want to tell a secret? Shikamaru and Avi immediately turned to Ino and listened. The girl grunted in satisfaction. Okay, if you ask so. In general, this is about two of my classmates. It all started as usual. This Naruto and Sasuke suddenly decided to have an argument right in the classroom. This is a common thing for them. They decided to check who could be the first to steal Iruka-sensei's protector. Laughing, Ino waved her hand. Well, these two argued for so long that one guy Tobio accidentally pushed Naruto, and he fell right on Sasuke and their lips. Ino temptingly stretched out her lips and burst out laughing. Believe me, this sight was gorgeous. You should have seen the faces of all this crowd of girls drying for Sasuke, he. An odd grin crept across Shikamaru's face, and Avi just shook her head. Kji chuckled and said, Brother Naruto is not to blame and this is not funny. By the way, he won, he somehow managed to deceive Iruka-sensei. Although, I do not envy him after that. Sensei always knows how to invent punishments. Ino nodded. Yeah, you're right, Naruto always gets hit. He's just his favorite. Shikamaru could only chuckle at this situation. It looks like these two are destined to take the first kiss from each other. Oh heaven! Glancing at Ino, Shikamaru casually asked. And Sakura? The blonde blinked in surprise. What's with her? Shikamaru chuckled. How did she react? Isn't she one of those who dry on Sasuke? In fact, Shikamaru knew that Sakura didn't act like that, but he still wondered if something might have changed since he left. He didn't have much time to watch everything now. Ino narrowed her eyes and asked with a strange chill in her voice. Why do you care about Sakura? Shikamaru coughed and shrugged. Yes, just remembering, her chakra control is very good. Chakra control. Ino snorted and turned away. Shikamaru just shook his head and sighed. Naturally, he knew he liked Ino. She was just still a child and it was too early to act. Although Shikamaru was a little surprised that the girl didn't run after him and didn't act like a child. If you remember, then they ran after Sasuke with Sakura like crazy fans, but here Ino behaves so secretively. Probably, girls either have their own instinctive approach to each guy, or they still depend on these guys. Shikamaru was more inclined towards this option. Yet he was not withdrawn like Sasuke and behaved differently. More grown up. As for Sakura, in recent years Shikamaru had been in contact with her, but everything was somehow strange. There was a feeling that the girl liked him, but she seemed to be avoiding him. Which was clearly not like her. Shikamaru sometimes wondered if he was in that world. Can the presence of a person influence those around him? Curious. Maybe I give myself away with my manners and it scares others away. No, Sakura can hit Naruto as usual, I saw it more than once, well, and Sasuke, she doesn't seem to notice him. It's clearly my fault, otherwise everything would be like the original. After a pensive pause, Shikamaru returned to guys. Avi was sad, Ino was throwing disgruntled glances at Shikamaru, and Kji was crunching his chips without worry. Silence. Shikamaru coughed and said, "Don't be angry. Ino, by the way, did I say that your hairstyle is adorable?" The girl puffed out her cheeks, offended, and then turned around. "I am no longer a child, your words do not please me much." "Really? Why did you blush then?" Avi asked with a grin. HMPF. "I didn't blush, this sun is falling. Anyway, I will go, I have trainings for the transfer of consciousness. Until." Waving a small hand, the girl got up and left. Avi smiled oddly and rose with a sigh. "I'll go too." Shikamaru nodded and gazed after the girls, leaning back on the couch and letting out a sigh of relief. At that moment CHG spoke up. She didn't care. "What?" Shikamaru blinked, and then began to understand. "Are you talking about Sakura?" "Yeah." Chewing chips, the fat man put the pack on the table. "I don't understand these girls. I can prank this Sasuke with my eyes closed, and they all squeal because of him. What's so special about it?" Shikamaru just chuckled. "A cute face decides a lot. It looks like you and I are two scumbags. Shave both of them and we'll be your typical gangsters." Kji laughed. "I agree, a man must be scary, that's what Dad says. The main thing is not what the face looks like, but the spirit and confidence. Take this Sasuke, while he sits there quietly, I will grab all the girls like a man and he won't get anything." Shikamaru laughed and nodded with praise in his eyes. "This is my brother. You say the right things. Take it while you can." "Ah ha ha, definitely noticed." Shikamaru smiled again and asked, "What about Hinata? How is she there?" "Ah. Well, as usual, she is modest. I saw her a couple of times at the training ground, she trains harshly. After that time, no one bothers her much." Shikamaru laughed and waved his hand. "Well, good, it's even better." Kji put the chips aside and asked with a grin. "Sakura, okay, but do you really like the small Hyuga?" Shikamaru rolled his eyes and shook his head. "That's why, as a question about girls, you liked it so much. Sakura is cute, here I cannot argue. Hyuga too, but the second interests me on another issue." "Oh, are you talking about that time?" "Well, yes, then I really wondered why you decided to stop Naruto. But when I saw you, I respected you even more." Shikamaru looked away and remembered with a smile that day at the academy. That day there was a usual lecture from Iruka-sensei on the use of chakra, a little about the ranks of missions and techniques, and then another change began. On that day, everything had to go, as always, peacefully. Kji would chew on chips, Sakura and Ino would chat about nonsense, and Shikamaru's clone would idly flip through the book, sighing about his cloned fate. But this time something interesting happened. In the academy, as in any other class, there were some hooligans, as well as those who they would make fun of in turn. Naturally, there were those whom they did not touch and were even afraid of, but there were naturally those who would sooner or later come to their turn. So that day, it was Hinata's turn. Although they sometimes made fun of the harmless girl in between times and a couple of such guys laughed at, they usually never made such scenes as they do today. It can be said that this was the second time that Hinata was so pestered and teased by several children. The girl, as always, shrank and lowered her head. The ridicule from 3 children poured out. The entire class itself, those who were still present in the audience, had already paid attention to this, but no one was in a hurry to interfere. Shikamaru, Kji, Ino, and Sakura were some of those. They just watched. They all had their own reasons. The Ino Shikacho Trinity had their own views on this, and they tried not to get involved in their own affairs, especially after communicating with Shikamaru. Their views on many things changed. Of course, there were those who immediately decided to intervene. Whistling at the window, Naruto, when he saw this booth without thinking, jumped off the desk and walked quickly towards these children. He always intervened and broke up fights, if any. But at the same moment, the guy stopped abruptly when a silhouette flashed right in front of him and Shikamaru's back appeared. Naruto frowned and glancing towards Hinata asked. "Shikamaru, what are you doing? Get away." Shikamaru just turned his head slightly, slapped Naruto on the shoulder and sat down in an empty seat. "Don't bother yet, she can handle it. If not, then she shouldn't be a shinobi." Looking intently into his friend's eyes, Shikamaru said earnestly, "Are you going to cover her back all my life? What will she be then?" Naruto frowned, but thoughtfully nodded and sat down next to his friend. "If something." "Shut up and watch. She is a Hyuga. If you studied, you should know what they can do." Naruto nodded briefly and both continued to stare. Only moments had passed since their little skirmish, so nothing much had changed in the class. Almost no one paid attention to their skirmish. Only Sasuke, sitting to the side, glanced at Naruto, snorted and turned away. At the same time, the children continued to point fingers and laugh at Hinata. Someone even grew bolder and decided to touch her hair, but the girl, without even lifting her head, easily dodged the boy's hand, which pretty much surprised everyone. Shikamaru did not take his eyes off her. Naturally, he knew that Hinata herself was capable of taking care of herself. In an extreme case, he would have intervened himself, but Shikamaru believed that the girl would remember their last meeting and that something would change from his presence and condemning look. She just had to start, and then she could handle herself. He did not allow Naruto to interfere because he understood that he could not go on for so long. Naruto sometimes does not think about the consequences. Helping others was not shameful, but not in such a case. Hinata is a member of a noble clan. If she allows this to continue with her abilities, she will never learn to defend herself. Moreover, since in this reality the girl did not have the connection with Naruto that would allow her to become brave in the future, Shikamaru had to do something. Indeed, to some extent, it was his mistake that Hinata did not develop a child's love. At least for now. Without it, Hinata may remain weak, which would only be one person's fault. Shikamaru well remembered one experience from the past, when, while still young, he helped one person. Since then, although he was faithful to him, in fact, he always relied on him and unconsciously needed protection. Therefore, Shikamaru remembered this experience forever. Never help someone who can do everything himself. Ha, look, this big-eyed seems to be able to dodge. Straight ninja. Ha ha ha. The same boy who tried to grab Hinata by the hair said with a laugh. Naturally, he felt that she did not intend to answer and grew bolder even more. How long are you going to be silent? Shikamaru's gaze sharpened and Hinata involuntarily felt him on herself. When she looked up, their eyes met instantly. Shikamaru tilted his head with a smile and continued to stare. Hinata immediately understood everything. She clearly remembered the day when Shikamaru helped her, and also remembered all his words. Now he did not help her and was definitely waiting for her actions. You could fight. You might not have won, but you could have tried. So why didn't you? And if they laughed at your loved one, what would you do? If you don't figure it out the next time, they'll suffer a lot more from me, do you understand? Hinata was afraid, she did not want to harm them, but at the same time, remembering everything he said, her fists involuntarily clenched, and his mocking look made the girl even more nervous. She was already at her limit. She was annoyed not so much by these childish taunts, but by this disappointed look. Do it. Or it will be worse, do Hinata. Come on. Even without Hinata's words, it was as if she was listening to everything he said. Just then, one of the bullies finally grabbed Hinata's hair. Naruto clenched his fist and was about to stand up when he suddenly stopped and stared at Hinata in amazement. A loud slap went through the audience at the same moment. But Naruto stared at Hinata in surprise. Shikamaru nodded approvingly and rubbed his chin thoughtfully. Not bad. As he expected, his presence clearly influenced the girl. She needed some motivation, and getting someone's disappointed and mocking look is fine too. This, of course, is not the same as taking the example from Naruto, but also a method. Just at that moment, the boy who barely touched Hinata's hair screamed at the top of his throat, holding his swollen cheek. His small body flew almost a meter away from just one slap in the face, and he only now realized what had happened. It seems that Hinata did not have much time to restrain herself, and in this blow she put all the accumulated resentment. Usually she was always silent, but now everything has changed. Hinata herself didn't expect to do it, she didn't even understand how it happened. Everything was immediately clear from her face. The girl looked in surprise at the slightly reddened palm, and then at the defeated boy. I am sorry. After saying that, Hinata glanced at Shikamaru, then turned around and quickly ran out of the audience. Shikamaru sighed and shook his head. Even so, it's better. It's a pity she didn't beat them all, this will obviously not be enough for them to understand everything. I'll have to clean up a little after her, she must understand that she coped herself. Reluctantly getting up, Shikamaru went to these bully. Coming back from his memories, Shikamaru involuntarily smiled. Basically, everything worked, no one else seemed to go to Hinata, and the girl herself, although imperceptibly, changed. Since then, she has become a little more confident and trains harder. A couple of times the clones saw her at the test site and brought news. Although Shikamaru had no plans for the young Hyuga, since he had already helped her once, he still sometimes looked after her. Yes, and having a friend in a noble clan is also not bad, especially if this friend is the heir of this clan. Yawning, Shikamaru glanced at Kji and said, "If she copes, that's good. Our group has enough talent. Naruto, you, Ino, Sakura, Kiba, Shino and Sasuke. They will make excellent Shinobi. Some of you will definitely pass on Knin if you try and continue training." Kji nodded. "Yes. I'll hand it over, if not, then I shouldn't be called a Kimichi." "Ha, then don't complain if you succeed," Shikamaru chuckled. "When are you planning?" Kji smiled oddly as he shook the last of the chips out of the pack and stood up and said, "Together with you, of course, then my chances of passing will be 100%. Cunningly, you can't argue here." "Well, then." Smiling, Kji nodded to his friend, "I'll go already, I still need to help my father. See you." Shikamaru watched his friend slowly, but Kji stopped abruptly at the door and said loudly, Until weekend. Don't forget, we have hot springs. Until. Waving to Shikamaru, the fat man opened the door and walked away to the ringing of bells. After Akimichi left, Shikamaru relaxed. Say what you don't, but having friends is good. Especially people like Kji. They will cheer you up and help you in difficult times. Shikamaru is only now beginning to understand this truth. Every year he more and more felt like a part of this world. Even the attitude towards his parents changed, he began to trust them a little more, and in some matters he consulted with his father. Only he was too suspicious. Say what you don't say, but an experienced ninja, and even such as Shikaku, clearly had suspicions. Fortunately, he was still his father, otherwise who knows how everything would have turned out. So far, he has not taken active action, but this is so far. Shikamaru was not used to hoping for luck in such situations, so he always tried to keep his distance. He was not at all happy about the opportunity to go to Yamanaka for a brain cleaning. Naturally, this would be an extreme case, Shikaku most likely would not go for it. But no one bothered him just to check Shikamaru. Just one question and the guy might have problems. After all, if he has nothing to hide, why be afraid of checking? Although it seems Shikaku either did not want to resort to this method, or simply could not. Still, he was his father, and in the matter the Nara family were always not very decisive. Except, of course, Shikamaru. He was always ready for surprises from the family, and from this, the suspicions of the rest certainly did not diminish. Only Yoshino did not seem to question this question, and maybe she was the one holding Shikaku back. Either way, Shikamaru was already preparing for the worst. He most likely cannot prevent the death of the third, and after it happens, everything in the village will change. In those days it is worth being even more vigilant. Although just in that case, Shikamaru already had a plan. After the friends left, Shikamaru called the cute waitress, ordered tea and relaxed. Yes, time flies. These two are already close to Knin. As for the Uzumaki boy, I saw Naruto about 2 months ago, he seemed to look tough. I wonder what he has already achieved there. At the time of the academy, he became friends with Sasuke, and this Uchiha thanks to him was able to pull up skills. Now I think they are in full competition. Curious came out of the situation. I think they might be as good as Gaara for the Knin exam, even without those Raizengans and Chidori. I have had a good influence on history. No matter how it gets out of my way. With the girls, weirdness has already begun to appear, but just give these two a little more strength, and who knows what it will all turn out to be. Though, maybe it's for the best. I started a new life, I don't need ideal schemes and favorable situations here. Changing history is part of my journey, because it will only be more interesting. Therefore, I should give Naruto a little of Fuin's knowledge. I was able to distribute all the information in an understandable order, so he can handle it now. What a headache it was. Sighing unpleasantly, Shikamaru took a sip of tea. He is Uzumaki, this is his legacy, so karma has it. I do not plan to get involved in the affairs of his clan, while the third and these elders are in the village. But I am obliged to contribute to the revival of Uzumaki. Karen will also be there. At this exam, I made part of the preparations, it remains only to entice the girl. I may love to complicate my life, but when I need to work, I do it. Only the stupid think the Nara are lazy. My father works more than any Shinobi, except, probably, the Hokage. This old man is probably already rooted to the chair there. Even he does not allocate time for training with me. At the same time, the father still has to sort out a bunch of cases and still manage the clan. Well, as for Shikamaru in the original, I very much doubt that he acquired his skills while lying on the couch. A lazy ninja is a dead ninja, that's a fact. Yes. As for Karen, if I could somehow influence Tsunade, she could help me with this Uzumaki. Taking a sip, Shikamaru looked out the window and smiled. The sun was going down, the red glow painted the skies in bizarre colors, which made the warm tea even hotter. Shikamaru involuntarily leaned back on the sofa. But it's almost 10 years already. One can say not even 3, but 4 years have passed. In a couple of months, my birthday and all my savings will show themselves. Although, the system threw me a lot of problems during this time. I am glad that I did not choose Kaguya's pedigree in those days. Life taught me, with this system you should always be on the lookout. With a grin, Shikamaru immediately revealed the status. Name, Shikamaru Nara. Age, 9 years old. Faction, Nara Clan, Hidden Leaf Village. Ninja rank, Genin. Strength, 215, Stamina, 213, Speed, 209. Talent, 300, Chakra amount, 2920, Chakra control, 185. Pedigrees, 5/5. Nara, Strength 425%, Improved Mastery of the Element Yin, 85%. Improved Genome, absent. Kaguya, 50% Strength, Unique Body +5 to Indicators, Strength, Endurance and Speed. Improved Genome, Shikatsumiyaku. Evolution, absent. Uchiha, Power 400%, Improved Mastery of the Element Fire, 80%. Improved Genome, Sharingan, completed. Evolution, absent. Inuzuka, Strength 50%, Upgrades of all senses +5 Speed. Improved Genome, absent. Uzumaki, 350% Strength, Improved Control and Chakra Volume. +35 to Control, +1400 to Chakra Volume. Improved Vitality and Disposition to Fuinjutsu. +5 to Stamina. Elements. Wind release 11%. Earth release 47%. Fire release 109%. Yin release 121%. Yang release 32%. Shikamaru's stats have increased slightly in recent times. It is understandable, training and education bear fruit, and the increased talent has made it possible to achieve even more in such a period. But focusing on 3 scores that exceeded 200 points, Shikamaru rubbed his temples in annoyance. During these years, everything went according to plan, but these 3 indicators made themselves felt as soon as they exceeded 200. At the same moment, an insurmountable barrier was reached, which is now very difficult to overcome with the help of training. For more than a year, these characteristics have not been growing much, and Shikamaru did not yet know exactly how to step over this line. He had ideas for some pills, but so far he could not use them due to lack of glasses and plans for new bloodlines. Therefore, now he could only rely on increasing the characteristics with the help of pills and the acquisition of new bloodlines, as such training ceased to bring special results. This new limitation was unpleasant, but still bearable. Still, the current physical strength and endurance of Shikamaru is almost not inferior to the Jonin's. Of course, otherwise he's not strong enough. Now the opportunity to grow is a little limited. But, this is temporary. In the not too distant future, the guy had plans for the Kaguya pedigree, which was long overdue to pump. Since the limit was reached, the pumping time was just right. The problem was still in the body. With the last huge chakra growth, Shikamaru developed bone pains and hard-to-suppress chakra bursts. Now he was able to suppress them, but the pain remained. The rapid growth of chakra left some internal traumas, which, although they hurt less often, sometimes make themselves felt. Otherwise, the growth rates were not so huge, the elements reached the expected limits, and the land almost reached the cherished 50%, which Shikamaru was waiting for. He even stopped training the element of the wind, only to finally reach the desired values in the element of the earth. Still, this is a direct path to completing another task. Now it remains to take 1 or 2 elixirs and the goal will be achieved. Chakra volumes have increased due to Uzumaki's ancestry and natural maturation, overtaking most of the village's jonin, and control has reached already acceptable values for learning Iori ninjutsu and Fuin at an excellent level. These two characteristics have probably grown the most, mainly due to constant training in this area. It was not in vain that Shikamaru sat 4 hours on the same activity all these years. His chakra control has already accurately reached the control of the experienced jonin specializing in medical care. At his age, it was pretty good. Probably, if it were not for the Uzumaki lineage, it would be very difficult to study Fuin so easily. The ability to properly interact with chakra paper and control chakra flows is not given to everyone. No matter how you study here, it will not be so easy to compare with Uzumaki, especially if he has a predisposition. Here, either you received this gift or not, just like with the Sharingan, it's just that the benefits are not so obvious. Regarding the Sharingan, everything is not so simple. Basically, Shikamaru trained eye power with Raizeenn and tested his genjutsu on him. He supported activated eyes only in his hideout or in sparring with an old man. At any other moment he never used them, for safety reasons. But this did not particularly hinder their development. Usually Uchiha do not awaken their eyes at that age and, therefore, cannot train, and this is not to mention their chakra amount. Therefore, Shikamaru was able to perfectly get used to the eyes as well as other Uchiha. He was able to perfectly train the basic Sharingan techniques, copying, perception, vision, hypnosis. Naturally, he did not receive some of the benefits that the Uchiha clan receive. Over the years of their existence, they have created a lot of training methods for the owners of their dojutsu. Of course, Shikamaru could not get them. Even so, his success was still not so bad. He was even able to recreate some interesting genjutsu from the Sharingan, so his successes were obvious. The same was true for Shikatsu Myaku, he did not train him very often. Basically, after receiving the 8 gates, Shikamaru only tried to group some of the techniques of this genome and the power of the gate. Because these 2 techniques were ideal in taijutsu, there was no need to argue. Together with the Sharingan, a good fighting style emerged. He took it as the basis for his future ideal taijutsu style. While preparing the base, he did not forget about genjutsu, ninjutsu, even bukajutsu. It was important to master, if only for the base. Raizeenn loved staves, so basically Shikamaru had to train bojutsu. He didn't mind much, but with his bones and strength, he still thought it was a little overkill. Although he nevertheless acquired a certain craving for weapons, he has not yet reached such an extent as to carry a staff or a sword with him. He has not yet decided on the usefulness of the weapon venture. Still, the memories of Guy's abilities or of how his father almost killed all the mist swordsmen with his bare hands was impressive. Regarding the techniques that Shikamaru learned, it is worth highlighting a few special ones. Basically, these are A-rank techniques, which he already used and trained. Mystic Palm Technique, A rank, Ioryo Ninjutsu. 8 Gates, A rank, Kinjutsu. Shikamaru has only a few elemental A rank ninjutsu, but their strength is amazing. Naturally, there are techniques and S rank, but they are a minority and they all belong to Fuinjutsu, because only Shikamaru was able to apply them. The 2 ninjutsu received for the tasks he could not yet use. And naturally something even more special. A technique he learned from flashback and short training sessions. Raizeenn, A rank. He studied it recently, so it took a little time. Nevertheless, the current control of Shikamaru is already at an excellent level, and the chakra allowed him to continue frequent attempts. He simply had to study Raizeenn. This is the legendary technique of the 4th, it was quite useful for the collection, and useful for control. In addition, one should not forget about its power, especially when combining the nature of the chakra. Of course, Shikamaru regretted a little that he could not find the Flying Thunder God technique, even from Mito's notes, but this did not really upset him, as a last resort everything can be bought. And his style of fighting was a little different, although this technique was useful, but not now. The general list was replenished with more than 100 jutsu. Most of them were not of a very high rank, but a third of them were just like that. Jutsu B rank now he was already in abundance, like any normal jonin. This directly helped to complete several tasks and get the necessary points for the next stage of development. Shikamaru learned these jutsu in one go, but in fact he certainly would not have applied the majority. They were needed rather for training, and some for completing assignments. Therefore, only a few of them mattered in Shikamaru's eyes. Especially self-created or rather strong. He tried to develop his own style based on all his advantages. Technique. Ninjutsu. Shadow Binding Technique, Haijutsu Yin Release. Shadow Binding Technique Shadow Imitation, Haijutsu, Yin Release. Shadow Neck Binding Technique, Haijutsu, Yin Release. Shadow Imitation Field Technique, Haijutsu, Yin Release, Creator. Dance of the Dead Shadows, Haijutsu, Yang Release, Yin Release, B Grade, Creator. Dance of the Thousand Sharp Bones, Haijutsu, D Rank, Creator. Shadow Needle Technique, Haijutsu, Yin Release. Shadow Shuriken Technique, D Grade. Body Replacement Technique, E Rank, General Skill. Transmutation Technique, E Rank, General Skill. Shadow Clone Technique, B Rank, Clone Techniques. Clone Technique, E Rank, General Skill. Bodily Blink Technique, D Grade, General Skill. Guided Shuriken Technique, D Grade, Shuriken Jutsu. 3 Blades Controlled Windmill, C Rank, Shuriken Jutsu. Temporary Paralysis Technique, D Grade. Summoning Technique, C Rank. Mystic Palm Technique, A Rank, Ioryo Ninjutsu. Chakra Scalpel, B Rank, Ioryo Ninjutsu. Poison Mist, B Grade. Ioryo Ninjutsu. Raizeenn, A Rank. Blood Transfusion Technique, B Grade, Ioryo Ninjutsu. Plus Wind Release, Great Gust, C Rank, Wind Release. Wind Release, Vacuum Wave, B Rank, Wind Release. Wind Release, Vacuum Sphere, B Grade, Wind Release. Wind Release, Vortex Fist, C Rank, Wind Release. Wind Release, Wild Wind Dance, C Rank, Wind Release. Wind Release, Shuriken Spin, D Rank, Shuriken Jutsu, Wind Release. Wind Release, Bone Blade Projectile, Haijutsu, Wind Release, Yang Release, Creator. Plus. _ Earth Release, Reverse coastal earth, C rank, earth release. Earth release, earth wall, B rank, earth release. Earth release, inferno swamp, A rank, earth release. Earth release, double suicidal decapitation technique, D rank, earth release. Earth release, earth and stone dragon, C rank, earth release. Earth release barrier, prison dome of majestic nothingness, B rank, earth release. Plus many techniques of earth release. Fire release, great fireball technique, C rank, fire release, dragon flame technique, C rank, fire release. Fire release, sage phoenix flame technique, C rank, fire release, greater fire incineration, B rank, fire release, fire dragon flame projectile, B rank, fire release, great fire release technique, B rank, fire release. Fire release, hidden fire bullets, B grade, fire release, Haijutsu, yang release, creator. Plus further. Plus several general skills of E rank, release from ropes, illusions, etc. Standard skills based on a small amount of chakra. Taijutsu. Hurricane leaves, D rank. Dancing leaves shadow, S rank. Leaf style, basics, E rank. Leaf style, full, D rank. Seven heavens breath method, B rank. Cloud style, E rank. 8 gates, A rank, Kinjutsu. Primal lotus, B grade, Kinjutsu. Reverse lotus, A rank, Kinjutsu. Shikamaru bones crazy dance, Haijutsu, B grade, creator. Bone palm lunge, Haijutsu, B grade, shaper. Reinforced skeleton, Haijutsu, B grade, shaper. Plus Genjutsu. Illusion of white mist, D rank. Black enveloping mist of shadows, C rank. Dark coming technique, A rank, Yin release. Genjutsu, interrogation, C rank, Yin release. Genjutsu, flower petals escape, C rank, Yin release. Demonic illusion, infernal vision technique, D grade, Yin release. Plus Dojutsu. Demonic illusion, stitching technique, Sharingan. Genjutsu, Sharingan. Sharingan compulsion, Sharingan. Sharingan, slow focus, Sharingan. Dream realm, dark night, Sharingan, creator. Dream realm, carnage, Sharingan, creator. Dream realm, thousand shadows, Sharingan, creator. Fuinjutsu. 5 elements style, A rank, Fuinjutsu. The main method of the Uzumaki seals, A rank, Fuinjutsu. 30 lights Yin style, A rank, Fuinjutsu. Printing style Saitaru Uzumaki, A rank, Fuinjutsu. 3 barrier seal methods, B rank, Fuinjutsu. Triple burning method, S rank, Fuinjutsu. Whirlpool printing method, 3 styles, AS rank, Fuinjutsu. Breaking the shackles, A rank, Fuinjutsu. Dual writing style, Haijutsu, B rank, Fuinjutsu. Dual writing style of interaction of shadow and eyes, Haijutsu, B rank, Fuinjutsu, creator, Sharingan. Plus more than 30 methods, C rank, D rank. Putting aside the mug after another sip of tea, Shikamaru thought. This is not so important, I have completed quite a few tasks and in a couple of months it will be possible to start the long-awaited pumping. I've been waiting for this day for almost 4 years, so it's not so difficult to endure a couple of months. I will not lose much, because I have already fulfilled most of the conditions for the task of Jonin's strength, my increased strength has reached the expected values. These new limits in strength and endurance are only a minor problem. Moreover, they showed me that there is a possibility of reaching the limits and in the chakra, and in control, which means it is worth being careful in the future. In any case, in the end, the points will be enough, and the next pumping will be amazing, far surpassing all the previous ones. I am sure that I will reach the strength of Jonin in one step, and by the age of 12 I will fully consolidate my skills and I will probably not be weaker than even Kakashi. Amazingly, this is a fact. Although there is no need to delude ourselves, at 13 attack I could well have defeated Hatake, not to mention his current strength. So I'm still within reason. Yes, and I have too little real combat experience, and sitting in the countryside got bored. If nothing unexpected happens, then after 12 and becoming Knin, and then immediately Jainin, I will leave the village. After finishing drinking tea, Shikamaru slowly left the cafe. The sun had already disappeared behind the horizon and bright stars appeared in the dark sky. The weather turned out to be wonderful, and the melodious singing of birds also brightened this beauty. People went home and in Konoha the lanterns just came on. The area has always been very busy, especially at this hour. Shikamaru always liked to go out in the evening and gaze at the distant stars, sometimes casting glances at the same Hokage rock. After that, presenting pictures of the attack of the nine-tailed fox and the legendary battle between teacher and student, Obito and Minato. Breathing in the fresh summer air, Shikamaru closed his eyes and said with a smile. Autumn is coming, the first major task is on the nose. I hope the old man will keep his word. A light breeze shook Shikamaru's hair slightly, and closing his eyes, he broke into a satisfied smile. How quickly he got used to this place. After a while, the guy slowly opened his eyelids and sighed. There was one more thing that was worth finishing today. Looking somewhere into the distance, sadness flashed in Shikamaru's eyes, after which he went in a certain direction. She's probably still there. On the way, Shikamaru involuntarily recalled one terrible event that befell the village not so long ago. Hardly 2 years have passed since the entire Uchiha clan ceased to exist. They talk about what happened to this day in the village. Uchiha Itakai, the genius of the clan, slaughtered all relatives, leaving only one alive, the younger brother, who was barely 8 years old. The legendary clan, one of the founders of Konoha, disappeared in such a sad way. Now there is no Senju or Uchiha left, both have disappeared in history. The first at least diluted the blood with other clans, but the Uchiha has only 2 representatives left. Even Uzumaki has a better chance of being reborn. This is the end, perhaps the curse of hatred, and got its name for a reason. No one should wish that fate, especially this clan. Only a fool did not understand their importance for the village. Their murder is even worse than destroying your own Jinchuriki. To get rid of such, albeit a dangerous weapon, even from a cynical point of view, is not particularly reasonable. But, unfortunately, the situation was like that. Looking from the outside everything seems completely different. One thing is for sure, the third would never have made such a decision unnecessarily, and would not have put everything on the shoulders of Itakai. Only. Even if I know the truth, so what? This is really no use. I have not yet received any benefit from this knowledge. It's useless to blame the clan itself, and Dan's played an important role here, as, indeed, did the teacher. As such, there are many to blame, even the clan itself. After all, I am also to some extent an Uchiha, so my feelings are nasty, even if I did not know them all well. Stopping in front of a huge cemetery lined with hundreds of tombstones, Shikamaru sighed as he spotted several new tombstones that had appeared only about 2 years ago. All the Uchiha were killed that day. If not, this uprising would have taken a lot more lives and most likely civilians would have suffered as well. Which Hokage would allow such a thing? It's funny, but this time it was Kage himself who caused it, and after that he also used someone else's hands to clean it up. The Uchiha are only partly to blame, but who propped them up against the wall? The will of fire ceased to matter to them precisely because of these oppression. Therefore, they put the clan in the first place. We can say that is why they did not fit in and everything worsened even more. Sooner or later, the worst would happen, putting the value of the clan above the village. These are the views that the second wanted to suppress, and the rest of the Kage continued. That's the problem. Weren't the Uchiha different before when they abandoned Madara? Although, how do I know? Shikamaru shook his head with a sad sigh. Itachi chose the village, chose the lives of everyone else. They do not even imagine how difficult such a choice was, they are his relatives by blood. Lowering his gaze, Shikamaru sighed. It was because of the likes of Danza and Tobirama, because of the indecision of such as Raizeenn, Itachi made the most terrible choice in my life as a simple teenager. It's hard to blame him, even if he killed almost everyone he loved. At 13, how ruthless and how cruel to himself. These old people are so pitiful. I can't believe that I live in such a world now. Letting out a long sigh, Shikamaru turned and looked at the Hokage monument and the face of the third. Shikamaru had known Raizeen's position for a long time, but now, the old man's failed actions have borne fruit again. This karma. Soon, and you will face it. One disciple kills the teacher, while the other will resolutely remain on the sidelines. Whatever respect I have for you, but this is what this cycle of wars and your decisions led to. With a grin, Shikamaru turned around and thought. I still can't decide if I am an observer or a part of this story. I liked a peaceful life without killing. I enjoyed the calmness and the study of amazing things, chakra and jutsu. But soon the consequences of my actions will show themselves. When this happens, I'm afraid there will be no place for me in this quiet village, with such clean air and beautiful skies. Shikamaru shook his head with a grin. And what was I counting on? I was honest with my family and teacher, made friends and relaxed. My honesty and carelessness has led to suspicion and distrust, and my father's recent conversation with Inoichi is suggestive. They were definitely talking about me. I'm afraid something will happen soon. Just a little more time. How I would like to see that Knin exam. Well, then, you can return to my past and take care of my own protection, without unnecessary connections. I died and stopped being afraid of death, began to enjoy a quiet life without any special plans. This is the result. Although, I do not regret it. It may have been a little silly, but I've seen enough in my life. How could I miss the chance to be a child? True, my idea of children is too strange, because I studied all the time. Yeah, but had a great time and got some strength. Hope you like the video. Like, share and subscribe the channel. Also make sure you tell me your recommendation in the comment section down below. Thanks for watching.